first thing a student has to know when they fly in Pachacámac is that the landing is quite simple. It is a very large area of approximately 11 hectares, which allows the student to land very safely in their first flights. What is very important is to arrive at the landing with altitude, because the landing begins with a line of trees, and if the student arrives too low, they could have an incident by hitting those trees. That is why it is recommended that the pilot, the student, pass the line of trees and then perform the descent maneuvers, such as big ears or S-turns. To achieve that, we simply fly in a straight line without breaking the glider. The altitude of the small hill that is in front of the takeoff is usually enough, without doing big ears, and we pass the line of trees. The wind at the Pachacámac landing comes from the southwest, so we are going to approach the landing field against the wind. Once we are flying over the landing area, there we can begin our procedures to lose altitude. If we are very high, we can do big ears, and once we are at a reasonable altitude, we can do S-turns, or figure eights. What does that mean? It means turning right and then left, right, left. In the landing area, there is something like a circle. We are going to use that circle as a kind of bull, and we are going to try to aim there, because we will leave the second part of the landing zone as an alternate or emergency area. We are going to try to land in the first part of the landing. So in order to land close to the bull, close to the circle, it is necessary to lose altitude beforehand. The most common mistake students make is that they arrive with altitude to this circle, to this area where we want to land, and then they have to go back with tailwind. They approach the circle again, and they return with tailwind. Although they are doing an S or a figure eight, it is not the safest way. The ideal is to do it in such a way that you turn before the circle, right, left, and before the circle, trying to make sure that at no moment you fly with tailwind, but always with crosswind. And it is also important to be aware that the landing ends in a perimeter stone wall of approximately 1.80 meters in height. So if we are doing the approach and we get too close to the wall, 20 or 50 meters, it is better not to keep flying towards the wall. And of course, we are flying against the wind, but if we are close to the wall, it is preferable to turn slightly to the left and fly parallel to the wall, because crashing into the wall can be very dangerous. At high speed, you can easily break a limb when crashing into the wall. On the other hand, if you land slightly with crosswind, nothing happens. You land a little fast, but that can be solved by running in the landing. The S-turn or figure eight landing, as its name says, is about making an approach by turning to one side and then to the other. That means, I turn to the left, I let the paraglider stabilize, I hold a heading, and then I turn to the right. I let the paraglider stabilize, I hold the heading, and then again to the left. It never means doing consecutive turns, meaning right, left, because that creates inertia. In fact, it has a name. It is a maneuver called a wingover. We do not want to do wingovers. We want to turn to one side, stabilize the paraglider, maintain the heading, and turn to the other side. When I am already at a reasonable low altitude, around 10 or 15 meters, I have to do the final approach. In this phase, I should not turn anymore. On the contrary, I have to go straight and level with my hands up, letting the paraglider fly at its maximum speed so I can do a good flare. I am going to do this flare almost touching the ground. A few centimeters above the ground, I will begin to break both brakes little by little until I reach 100%, and then I will walk or run depending on my speed.